New builds are all the rage right now, aren't they? We're talking design center adventures, picking out your own lot. I mean, just the whole dream home effect going on. But here's the thing, there is a ton of risk involved in new builds right now, and you need to know what you're getting yourself into. Well, hello, this is Wendy Pennell, and when you think about building from the ground up, you're talking about a one-year adventure, but you're also talking about a one-year commitment. I mean, think about it. You sign a contract, make all these financial commitments, and a year later, you have to follow through. So why might right now not be a good time to do that? Well, new builds require a gamble into the future. So anyone else think of interest rates when I said that? They've been steadily going up over the past several months. And yeah, we're all crossing our fingers that the rates will be coming down soon. But US News called it, saying at the start of 2023, economists predicted that mortgage rates would gradually decline throughout the year, but that forecast hasn't come true. Forbes chimed in saying after 11 rate hikes, the rate range is currently 5.25 to 5.5%. They continue, the Fed has continually signaled it will not stop there. Even Federal Chair Jerome Powell stated, "We are prepared to raise rates further if appropriate and intend to hold policy at a restrictive level until we're confident that inflation is moving sustainably down toward our objective." Yahoo Finance recently released an article they entitled "Interest Rates Staying Higher for Longer Means at Least Through 2026 for the Fed." In the article, they described how a common refrain around the Federal Reserve in recent months has been the notion that interest rates will remain higher for longer. They released a graph they refer to as a dot plot. Now, the dot plot is important because, as Miles Edlund explains, it offers officials' forecasts for rates in the coming years. The dot plot also explains how rate predictions have changed from June to September. You can see with September, no one is predicting rates will come down at all in 2023. In June, they were. By September, they're not. Now, right now, the Fed's rate is around 5.25 to 5.5%, right? Well, on the dot plot, some officials predict the Fed's rate to go above 6%. That wasn't the case with the June predictions. I mean, hey, I'm not happy about it. But these rate predictions, they keep changing, and they haven't been changing for the better. And according to Forbes, and as we all know, a Fed rate hike indirectly impacts long-term home loans, such as 30-year fixed-rate mortgages. So when you sign up a year in advance, think about the risk you're taking with interest rates. I mean, let's talk about how much loan rates can affect your buying power. Let's just say you went under contract with a new construction home, planning to get a $600,000 mortgage last September. Interest rates were sitting at 6.29%. At the time, that was an atrocious amount, and everyone was sure interest rates would come down at the very latest by the end of 2023. I mean, surely the Fed's joyride will be over by then, right? Well, if you were headed to closing right now, a year later, interest rates are sitting at 7.19%. Now, that doesn't sound like that much of a difference, right? Well, at 6.29%, the mortgage amount of your monthly payment would be $3,710 a month. But 6.29% was last year's goodness. Now you're looking at 7.19%. That mortgage payment would be $4,069 a month. I mean, your gorgeous new build with that absolutely amazing kitchen you designed all by yourself is now gonna set you back by an additional $359 a month. Everyone said interest rates would be down by now, but they're not. And that's the problem with a one-year gamble. Right now, the prevailing view is that interest rates will go down in 2024, but the economy hasn't stabilized. The Fed says they're not through, and we honestly just don't know. And here's the thing, a rate increase may be more than just an inconvenience. It could cost you the qualification of your loan. I mean, we're talking about a difference of over $350 in monthly payments here. And what happens after the year-long building process when you don't qualify anymore? Well, you lose your deposit plus anything you paid for upgrades. I mean, yes, every builder has different terms in their contracts, but they're not going to give you over a year in order to get your financing in order. If your loan doesn't come through, you will lose everything you've invested so far. But let's just say that's not a problem for you. You didn't max out your budget a year ago, and the $359 difference is inconvenient, but it's not a deal killer. Well, interest rate increases aren't finished inconveniencing you yet. Okay, they could also affect your home's appraisal. Now, imagine this. The same problem you had to face with qualifying for a home at a higher interest rate will affect other buyers as well. I mean, do you think every one of them has the extra room in their budget that you did? Well, probably not. And now you have these homes that aren't closing. They turn into inventory homes that the builder will sell at a lower price. It's unexpected inventory that they thought they'd be turning into profit by now, and they need to get it off their books. And now we have a domino effect where homes around your home are being sold for less, thus increasing the chances that your appraisal will come in low. Now you're probably thinking, okay, Wendy, you're making this low appraisal thing sound like a big deal. What actually happens if my appraisal comes in short? I'm glad you asked, because it's pretty important that buyers are aware of this. If your appraisal comes in short, you have to make up the difference. See, lenders require an appraisal to see what the collateral for the loan is actually worth. They don't care what the builder's selling the home for. They only care what the home is actually worth. So even though you went under contract with the builder on your new build a year ago for, let's just say, $700,000, today the appraisal says your brand new home is worth only $650,000. And the lender, like always, is only going to give you a certain percentage of that. Now you might think to yourself, well, surely the seller will come down in price if the home isn't worth $700,000 anymore. Well, no, they actually won't. Every new construction contract I've seen to date, okay, they all say the same thing. If the home doesn't appraise, the buyer must make up the difference. As an example, Normandy Homes says in their contract, in some instances, the appraised value of the real estate may be lower than the purchase price. Purchaser understands, acknowledges, and agrees that seller will not reduce the purchase price or contribute in any way to an appraisal shortage of the real estate. Grand Homes has their own way of saying essentially the same thing. Okay, they say seller makes no representation or warranty with regard to the appraised value of the home. If the appraised value of the home is less than the purchase price and the amount of the loan is reduced by the lender, then purchaser shall pay that difference between the reduced loan amount and the purchase price in cash at closing. Bloomfield Homes says, they put it simply, if there's a low appraisal, Bloomfield Homes will not reduce the price. Like I said, I have yet to find a builder who allows price negotiations after the fact. If that appraisal comes in below the sales price, you will be making up the difference if you want to buy that home. Now, many buyers at this point are going to be very upset. They're going to be indignant that why should they have to pay more than the home is worth? But what you have to realize, it doesn't matter how you feel, okay? You've already agreed in the contract to make up any difference. Now, let me show you a real life scenario, okay? So you can see how much of a disaster this can be. Let's just say you're buying a $300,000 home with your down payment being $30,000 and the lenders being $270,000. If an appraiser comes in and says the home is worth $250,000, the lender is no longer lending $270,000. In fact, he's not even lending $250,000. He's going to loan 90% of the appraised value of the home, just like he always was. In this case, he'd be loaning $225,000. You no longer have a $30,000 down payment. Now you have a $75,000 down payment. Now, I get that you hear me saying all this, but in the back of your mind, you've been hearing about new construction interest rate incentives, and you figure those are a safe fallback. Well, here's the thing. Builders only offer rate incentives on inventory homes, the homes they want off their books, right? In other words, incentives are completely different with new builds than they are with inventory homes. With inventory homes, builders offer rate incentives, or they'll help out with closing costs. It's completely different with new builds. Incentives with new builds are often a credit that you can choose how to spend. You can spend it on upgrades like beautiful, wood look floors, or you can put it towards your price or towards your closing costs, right? So let's just say they gave you $30,000 and you already spent it at the design center. Now you come to closing and the builder's thinking, hey, I already gave them their incentive. And they're right, they have. The simple truth is builders don't offer fixed rate incentives on new builds. And really, this summer, new construction home sales have basically looked like builders doing anything they can to make homes more affordable without actually changing the asking price and lowering the home's values. One major way they've done this is through those beautiful interest rate incentives like buy downs, where builders can pay a portion of the initial cost of the home so that the buyer can get a lower interest rate. I mean, this has been a beautiful opportunity this summer, but you have no guarantee that will even be a thing a year from now. And even if it is, you've already spent your incentive money. So if you're banking on interest rate incentives in order to afford your new build home, you may be in trouble. Ever since the 2008 housing meltdown, we've had relatively stable interest rates, right? In the 4 to 5% range. If you take a look at the fixed rate mortgage average from March of 2009 to June of 2022, interest rates never rose above 5%. Okay, they basically hovered with very little movement. So if you took a 1-year gamble then, rates really weren't moving much. But fast forward to now, and interest rates are wildly unstable. It's just not the time to make a 1-year gamble. Since we're on the topic of interest rates and uncertainty, let me throw out another reason why you shouldn't be thinking about building right now. Next year is election year. Wait, what? I hear you asking, elections affect home sales? Yeah, they do. Dima Williams with Forbes explains that research and industry experts agree that the closer the election gets, the more likely its effects on housing. And how do they affect sales, you ask? Well, that's where the uncertainty comes into play. According to Forbes, presidential races breed uncertainty in the housing market. They continue, why presidential elections affect the market more than any other election is simply because people fear change. This is according to Matt Laracy, managing broker of the Matt Laracy Group in Chicago. He continues, whenever people get nervous, they don't make rational decisions. They make emotional decisions. So before you go under contract on a home that won't close for another 10 to 12 months, take a moment to consider how volatile the housing market may be over the next year. Because the fact is, if market sales drop, you are on the hook for any appraisal shortage. All right, now let's talk about yet another reason why now isn't the best time to build. And that reason is successful negotiations. Negotiating a good deal is not easy. And there are several factors you need in order to be successful. If those factors aren't in play, you're gonna have a tough time. One of those factors is we need lower builder confidence. With seasonality, for example, a builder has a problem during the slow season. And if you're unfamiliar with the term, seasonality is basically the idea that Dallas has seasonal price swings every year. Home prices start increasing around February to March, and they're at their highest in June. July begins the downward trend in prices until they ultimately bottom out in January. Well, for builders with completed inventory, seasonality is a reality. They need to get that completed house off their books, but no one is buying because it's a slow season. So you get a temporary low builder confidence based on the season. Something you should know is that with new builds, you get virtually no benefit at all from seasonality. A builder won't even get paid for another year until the home is built, so they have no motivation to negotiate. Builder motivation for new builds is just hard to come by. I gave you several reasons earlier about the risk you're taking when going under contract on a new build. Well, the builder is absorbing a year's worth of risk too, and this makes them pretty rigid on prices. All right, they're thinking about increasing labor and material costs, increasing home values, in which case they would lose profit, and your inability to qualify for the loan a year from now. If a custom new home is your goal, you simply can't play the seasonality card for a win. Okay, you're gonna be paying more, while the pre-existing or inventory new construction home buyer next door will be getting a great deal. So if we're going to negotiate a good deal on a new build, the builders are going to need external motivation. Okay, we need them to be hungry. We like our builders to be like glass half empty, pessimistic kinds of folk. But unfortunately right now, they've been mostly optimistic. They're coming off a strong summer season with a lot of success in selling by interest rate concession. I mean, let's take a look at some builder confidence statistics. The NAHB Wells Fargo Housing Market Index is based on a monthly survey of home builders. They're asked to rate current sales of single-family homes and sales expectations for the next 6 months, and to rate traffic of prospective buyers. While a number over 50 indicates more builders view sales conditions as good than poor. And as you can see in this chart, we are on a downward trend, but we haven't been for long. The past several months have been looking pretty great for builders. But in order for you to save more money on your next home, you need the builders to want your money a whole lot more. I mean, basically, you need builder profit to go down. As long as profits are up, builders can continue to manipulate home values by offering interest rate incentives through buy downs. Every time the Fed raises rates, it makes it a little more difficult and more expensive to do that. So while none of us want interest rates to go up, there's at least that one silver lining to a rate increase. If we get to where builders can't afford to pay down rates anymore, it'll be a cascade effect after that. Home values will start to decrease, asking prices will start to decrease, and our negotiating power will start to increase. Now that's great if you're a buyer in real time, but if you're hooked to the builder over a year-long process to the extent that it's bad for the builder, any value fluctuation will be bad for you too. I mean, simply put, a year-long commitment during a time of volatility is just not a good idea. Now, I mentioned negotiating a good deal with new builds is hard to come by, and it is. Now, but that being said, there are a few scenarios where a builder has no choice but to offer discounts on new builds even when he knows he won't get paid for another year. I talk all about that in this video, which you may want to watch next. In the meantime, Wendy out.